projects. Mr. Juli holds a BFA in theatrical production from Hofstra University. Round of applause for our guest. So we have a lot to cover, but I thought we'd open up with Lonnie telling us a little bit about himself, and then we'll get into the program. Lonnie, it's yours.
Okay. I'm going to sit here so you don't have the full view of my back and I don't shade you. I'm Lonnie Juli. I'm a lighting designer, lighting director, and it took us a long time to get the designer credit in our contract at CBS, formerly at NBC. I do this every day. It's how I make my living full time. We work at a very high level at the network level because even in tough times we have more money than most people can imagine, even though we say we have none. What we say we have no money on production is you guys would kill for. So that's something to think about. So we have a lot of chance to experiment, to test over the past 19, 20 years at CBS, and we've learned a lot of things. What I'd like to talk to you about is television lighting for the most part. And the reason I say television lighting as opposed to lighting is you can light your apartment at home and do a beautiful job, and then if you were to come in and photograph it, it wouldn't look right on camera. The camera wants to see things a certain way. Your brain will correct any lighting flaws and make things look right. You can fall in love in a club with really bad lighting. Okay? Cameras won't do that. They have limitations. Even the best cameras have limitations. New cameras do more stuff and also have new limitations. So what we'd like to do is discuss how we do that. We were talking earlier, everybody wants to be a cameraman. That's kind of cool. You stand back there, you have your headsets on, talking to the director because he loves your shot, maybe today. So the camera's like, great, that's a great job. I'm a cinematographer, okay? And I am. And that's wonderful. You get to sit there, you know. And if it's a good production, you got a focus puller. You got great stuff. You know what? If the lighting's not right, it doesn't matter. Because, okay, the analogy we used is cameras are like whales. They're big, they're wonderful to look at. Lighting's like plankton. Kill all the plankton, the whales are going to die anyway. So we're going to not only keep them alive, we're going to have them thrive. Okay? I'd like to talk a little bit about lighting talent. Sometimes you'll light men on television. Sometimes you'll like people who are, how old are you?
17.
How old are you?
22.
How old are you?
20 today.
Okay, happy birthday. Okay, so we're 42, 59 years old, okay? My talent now is finally younger than these three women combined. Okay, but if you think about the evening news, Dan was in his 60s and 70s, Bob was in his 60s, Walter was always old, okay? Katie's finally, you know, younger. So that's a different set of skills. It's a different set of issues. Someone who's 17, I may want to actually make you look a tiny bit older on camera if you need some authority. Okay? Because, you know, when it comes to Afghanistan and whether we should stay or not, I don't know that all of America wants to take the word of a 17-year-old. Okay? 17-year-olds do. So if the program was focused towards a 17-year-old audience or a 20-year-old audience or a 29 and down, I'd keep you your same age. Okay? But if you're going to talk to a bunch of old people in Florida who just got back from the early bird, okay, I may want to make you look a little more mature. And that goes for you and you also. Things we think about. So we'll also touch about our relationship to makeup, hair, wardrobe very quickly because we don't have a ton of time. And then we'll talk about place. That it's not, you know, the fact that this is a desk and there's a black velour behind it and a screen where we could project graphics doesn't necessarily make this look like a news studio. There are certain lighting things you do to give that look because that's what people expect to see. A lot of our communication is not only nonverbal, it's sort of metaphysical in terms of what do people think when they see something under certain circumstances. The light on you is pretty much head on. You're facing this way. There's only really one key. Okay? Your lighting's pretty straight up. You're getting a little more dramatic. You're off center here. Okay? And you're sitting in the dark. We'll fix that before the thing is over. But all these three different lighting looks just accidentally all tell different stories. So Who's the most dramatic? Yeah, though you might be if we put a backlight on you. Okay? And who's the one who's probably going to narrate the story? Yeah, probably her. Okay, so that's all lighting. So okay? So as much as lighting is important to the camera, everything else grows out of story. Everything else grows out of, if you're doing a movie, if you're doing episodic television, there's a script. If you're doing variety television, there's a script. If you're doing news, trust me, there's a lot of script, and it includes all the inserts for everything else you're doing. Documentaries are different. Documentaries, the situation is the script. You still light for that. You don't get all fancy in somebody's home. You're doing a story about Appalachia, you don't come in and blow everything out to a nice even wash. There's probably one light bulb in the house and the window has a torn curtain on it, so you want to say that in lighting. And you do. And by the way, documentary and news gathering, you can't fake it. You could put another light outside, but you can't project the busted window shade on the window unless it's really there. Okay? Obviously, you have the technology and the capability of doing it. And when you get back and they look at your film, they look at your tape and they ask about it, and you say, oh yeah, I thought that was really cool, so they didn't really have that, but I had this great gobo with this broken window in it, so I put it up on the wall, you end up looking for a job the next day. That's a dismissible offense at any of the networks, at any news gathering organization. You can't lie visually, and you can't lie in terms of the copy. All right. So those are the things we work with every day. That's my decision process every day. I walk in, I say hello, I pour myself a cup of coffee, I grab my head electrician, I say, any news? Which means, which is funny in a news studio, but I say any news, and it means anything happening, any special interviews, any special pre-tapes we have to do, and lots of times the answer is no, and 10 minutes later somebody runs in and says, quick, Hillary Clinton was passing through New York, Katie called her, she's going to be here in half an hour, we're going to do a quick 45-minute interview, of which you'll see 3 minutes on the evening news and 45 minutes on the web. Go do it. Now, because we have certain setup things we do, we sort of know where that's going to go. And I'll ask, are we doing it in the interview area? Are we doing it in the flash studio? Are we doing it at the desk? Are we doing it in the newsroom? Where do we want to do it? Some of those are pre-lit. A lot of them aren't. So we'll run in and do that. We have probably $1 million worth of inventory, lighting inventory available to us full time. A lot of it's already dedicated to lighting the set, but that's it. And that's our day. And then 6:30, the part you see, it's pretty calm. We know what's going on. The thing is, for lighting, it's pretty calm. They're going to turn her one way or another. She's going to walk someplace. We sort of have all that going on. We have people on the floor to move the lights that have to be moved. But if you were to listen to it, and Jeff will tell you from the DGA, do they still give the how loud can you scream test as part of getting into the DGA? You have an executive producer, 2 senior producers, and piece producers in the control room at any time, walking through. Oftentimes screaming that their piece isn't ready, or we're playing it out of an edit room, or there's a black hole in it, what are we going to do about that? And we're flipping the show around, and things are changing. In the meantime, the graphics that go over the shoulder, as opposed to the graphics that fill the big projector behind Katie, all have to be changed, because if she turns one way or the other, you need the graphic differently, because they're not the same graphic on our show. On local news, they might be, and they may just use a smaller monitor. All of our graphics are purpose-built, and the motion's different. And the graphic artists work very hard to make them look right in that location. So the stuff you see in the plasma screen on the desk is very different from the stuff you see in the big screen behind her, or the stuff you'd see over her shoulder in a centered-up shot. So we were going to talk about the board, but I don't think we have to at this point. Do you want to queue up some of the evening news thing? We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll go backwards in time. We probably need someone to kill these lights. I need a volunteer. Not those, these. Those you can leave on. They won't wash out the screen. Good. Everybody can see? Okay. CBS Evening News. Everything's from October.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Introduced by a dead man.
Good evening, everyone. Pressure is building tonight on President Obama to come up with a new strategy for Afghanistan as U.S. casualties there continue to mount. Hundreds of Taliban...
You can lower the volume. I'll talk over her. This is our centered up shot at the desk. Okay, how many lights point at her? One, three, yeah, four. Do I have any other bids? It's like an auction. 1, 3. Okay, remember the key fill back thing you guys learned? Okay, think key fill back. Her key fill back here, her fill is actually what we call base light. Okay, you can pause that. Great. They're instruments that are, they're Mole-Richardson super soft lights. They're 4,000 watt super soft lights. Now we have them lamped at 2,000 watts, but they're the 4,000 watt version. They're about 3 feet by 3 feet square. There are 6 of them. And then there are 2 smaller versions that come just over her shoulder when she turns. In addition, there's a center key. And if you look at the light plate, you'll see some of this. But more importantly, in the desk in front of her, there are small LED lights. And there are 11 of those. So when you said 1 light, who guessed 1? You was sort of right. Katie also likes, and it helps her, she likes what's called an eye light next to the camera. In a studio this large, it doesn't make a lot of difference, except it makes her comfortable. It puts a little ping right in her eye. There's a little Fresnel next to the camera. So, do I have a flashlight with me? No, I have that. Do you have a flashlight with you? No. I do. But we won't pause. So in other words, see? See? So right here, there's no light on me. There you go. Kind of flat and all that. Nothing in my eyes, really. If we put a little light here, the flashlight you and I both don't have, you'd see a very different look in my eye. That's what we do for her. There are 20 different ways of accomplishing that. We do it with this single light next to the camera. Every shot you've seen so far, there's an eye light centered along the lens, probably a little higher than the lens for her. When we talk about face shapes, we'll talk about looking at this particular part of the face and determining whether that eye light should be center line, up a little, or down a little. Dan rather it was down a little. Katie Couric, it's up a little. Okay? It's sort of like putting makeup on. Okay? She's a little, her bone structure goes back a little bit here, so we try to get the light on top of that. Her keys are also higher than Dan's. Dan had the bags and was a little more forward, so we tried to get light to fill in from a lower level for him. He never used an eye light, but we did other things for him. We used harder, lower fills. Okay, so that's one setup. Now, again, it's a key, it's a big fill, and she's got 3 backlights there. And the reason they're 3, but they're all in a cluster, she's got 2 just for her shoulders that cut off right at her neck, and another one for her head. She doesn't like her hair to look bright. She doesn't like blondes with a lot of glow on their hair, so we tend to use very little top backlight. Never from the top, but from behind that hits her head. We do tend to cut onto shoulders pretty hard to pull her against the background. Other talent, the reason that 3rd light is there and it's all controllable is somebody else sits there. But with dark hair, we want to be able to drive that up and make them 3-dimensional. Key fill back. Big, but key fill back. Okay. You had a question?
I was asking about, because you were saying the light, how would that affect somebody's eyes if they had bags?
Yeah, so if they have bags. Well, the other thing is, let's turn these lights back on for a minute. Stay. It's like Gallagher. I brought props. Let's see, we have one of a normal size. Of course not. All this light is from the top. Even you have a shadow under your nose and all that. Out all night. Would you come around here? It's good. Out all night. Good night's sleep. Out all night. Good night's sleep. Now, if you don't want quite as much, you'd use that. Now notice, this looks a little artificial. It looks like, you know, she's standing in front of a fireplace or something. It's too much light from the bottom. You bring the white light, just enough. You do. Okay? Now, obviously on the desk with all the copy and the black plexiglass and all, we can't have this. So what we did is we built it into the desk, and it's controllable. And when she turns, we can dim the ones on her offside and bring the ones on her on side back up. So, okay, face. Young women, beautiful young women, help a little bit. Talent finds this addictive, okay? This is like crystal meth for talent. They want more. If you watch, what show follows us? It's one of the tabloid shows. I'm sorry, I don't watch it because I can't. The Insider. I like Lara. I've met her. She's one of the sweetest people I've ever known. Okay? They light her, that show, more from the bottom than from the top. It's all from here. And what happens is everybody looks like they're hiding something. Okay? There are times where that's appropriate, like when you're old, like me. But it's not what we would do every day, and it's not what we would do for Katie Couric or anyone else. Okay. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about faces. By the way, if you walk away with one secret recipe today, it's how to minimize wrinkles and lines. Okay? It's a very simple rule. If the line is horizontal, the light is vertical. If the line is vertical, the light is horizontal. Okay? So if someone has bags under their eyes, which you don't, I'm going to need an adult here pretty soon, somebody like my age. Okay. So if the bags are vertical, if the wrinkles are vertical, what you do is you may even want to bring the key down a little bit, but you try to get the light to wrap this way. What we just did there. If you have somebody with a very thin face or these kind of crags, you try to bring the light around. Because what that does is as you bring the light, it expands that. Okay? You wouldn't necessarily do that to somebody like me who's got a pudgy face, and you wouldn't use the low fill because it's just going to make me look bigger. All right, so you have these gentlemen here. Do they have names?
Yes, this is Wilbur Wright, and that's his brother.
Really? Nice job, guys. I was on a flight the other day. They would not be proud. They don't have a lot of lines in their face either. But again, if you look at these gentlemen, he's okay. See how he sort of falls in here? Okay, well, there's my magic disc again. Okay. If we fill this side, he's not so skinny anymore. And you can actually watch his face sort of expand a little bit. We also, vertical lines, horizontal fill. If we do that, doesn't really help a lot with the vertical lines. Even the hard one. Doesn't really help. What happens is it almost augments them because it brings up the highlights. So that's how you light for talent. You know, you guys in college, you can get away with murder. Most of your talent are other college students. They're 17 to 20 some odd years old. They're young. They're beautiful. Their faces look good. They don't have all the broken capillaries in their faces. I had one woman, and we won't mention her name, and it's not someone who's on the air now, who was model gorgeous. She had a broken capillary here. Okay, now she could get it fixed surgically, or she could just cover it with concealer, and that was fine. She'd spend half an hour before going on the air staring at the monitor, turning her eye to the camera to try to see it. Now, nobody sees it unless you do that. And she goes, can't you do anything about this? And it was, we don't see it. We don't see it. But it got to the point where it was almost obsessive with her. And at that point, you go to your executive producer and say, look, if I light her for this, it's going to hurt her. How do we do this? How do we calm her down? What we eventually did for her is we actually removed 3 of the instruments on that side of the studio and replaced them with some instruments that were equivalent in function but looked different. And I said, look, I'm not really sure, but does this seem any better for you? And she looked, she goes, yeah, I think so. And there was no change. It metered the same, it modeled the same, it was the same. But keep your talent happy. Tiffin now makes a set of diffusion filters called Glimmer Glass. The only difference between them and the regular soft diffusion filters is they have sparkles on them. Because when the talent sees them, they feel wonderful. Everybody laughs. Everybody laughs. But you're going to go to your next photo shoot or wherever, and if the photographer doesn't have a reflector, you're going to be saying, I need a reflector. Don't you think I need a reflector? Do I need a, you know, we used a reflector the last time. It looked better. So that's what happens. Okay, so That's part of that. I'm jumping around here. All right. I'm going to get back onto my little list here.
Lonnie, you want me to show anything else from here?
We can just let it run in the background as we talk, and I'll point. Studio 47 now is all HD. Sony 1400 series cameras. They have 11 clean stops of dynamic range. Dynamic range, the distance between black and white and all the steps in between that the camera can define. The camera can see those. A stop, okay, because it's all photography. It's all photography. A stop is every time, a stop on a lens is 2, 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 22. Those are the stops. You can look those up in any book. What you have to know is when I say a stop is twice as much light. So one stop is 2 times. 2 stops is 4 times. Okay, so let's do 11 stops. I can go from black to twice as good, twice as bright, 4 times as bright, 8 times as bright, 16 times as bright, 32 times as bright, 64 times as bright, 128 times as bright, 256 times as bright, 511 times as bright. Now here's the wonderful thing. 1024. I have a 1,000-to-1 contrast ratio in that studio with those cameras. All right? So all those years where your talent couldn't wear white or you couldn't have dark detail, you can now with some of the HD cameras. You may not want to, but you can. Okay, the camera has 11 stops. What are you recording it on? If you're taking the SD and it's going to end up, a lot of our viewers still watch the show in SD. They watch with converter boxes, or they watch on cable, or they watch on the web, which is even worse. SD, great SD, had 8 stops of range. So we used to compress everything into that. Talent was encouraged not to wear white on the set. If you saw a big piece of scenery that was white, it was actually TV white, which if you see it in person, it's gray.
And on the first show, Katie Couric wore white.
Yes.
A white blazer.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. But I knew that was coming. And my video man, Tommy Crocker, who's probably the best video man in the country, knew that was coming too. We sort of knew. We sort of knew, but we sort of expected. We knew she was going to wear bright colors. She's not one of the elderly white guys who always read the news anyway, so it's different. Okay, so, back to recorders. So are we going to record to a server? Are we going to record to tape? Are we sending, how are we sending the signal to the recorder? In our studio, we do uncompressed HD. Huge bandwidth. Fiber optic cables. Huge bandwidth. Okay? If you're going to record something in the field, you don't have that anymore. So what you do is you have to think about that. So do I like the 1,000-to-1 contrast ratio in my studio? Of course not. I have to think about how it's going to be recorded, how it's going to be edited, and you had the editor. Okay, 8-bit, 10-bit, 12-bit. What's your Avid set up for? 8, right?
Yeah, a lot of our content here, we're thinking that we want to be safe on every platform. So
Right.
we tend to stretch down.
Right, so you're probably running at about 200-to-1 on your contrast ratio, because that'll even look good on an LCD display like an iPhone or something like that. So you have to think about that. So now we're talking about contrast ratio. How much brighter than black is white? How much brighter than gray is white? Okay, so we'll establish that. Face the Nation is still shot in SD. 8 stops. Good cameras, only 8 stops. All right, so we have to figure out the white on the desk, the white on the shirt, because these are all congressmen, senators, secretaries, journalists. They're going to show up in a white shirt because they make love in a white shirt. They have, it's what they do. That tie is permanently attached. So not only that, but I shot the photographs that are the backgrounds behind these. So you also have to plan those when you shoot the photographs, when you print them, that they're not too bright, that they don't compete with his face. So we compress everything into the 8 stops of range. If you look on the wide shot, there are CBS logos on the desk. Now, the floor and the desk, that seems, okay, you can read that. They're way too dark. And if you were to walk out there, they'd still look sort of dark for you. But between video and all, what we do is we keep that at our minimum reproducible level. And we keep the white shirts just below the clip. just at about 95%, though occasionally, if someone's dark complected, we'll let them hit the clips a little bit. Do you guys, have you worked with waveform monitors yet? Okay, when you see a waveform monitor, it's like the ultimate exposure meter. It just shows you brightness, and it's the picture, but essentially figure it's just brightness in the picture. And you'll see whites go up here, and if you really get in trouble, they go up and then they crush. They're flat, and we'll do that. Sometimes we'll let a little bit of that happen. That was the white shot we talked about. But so much for that. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, dynamic range, recorder. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're recording for the web, that 200 to 1. If you're recording for SD, also about 200, 400 to 1 is about the best you want to do.
Can you just tell the students what I'm looking at here? This is your web?
This was done for the webcast. This is at Katie. If you search at Katie Couric on either YouTube or CBS News, you'll get all. This is a new series of interviews she's doing. The first one was Tony Blair. This one is very much key fill back, but the key is normal. The back is normal. The fill is a constructed fill. It's actually 4 different lights to make that fill, and we'll talk about that. And they wanted to do it on black, but they didn't want it to disappear into the black. So we did a couple of things to help hold it 3-dimensionally. The backlights are off center. They wrap around his shoulder a little bit. Yeah. The keys are off center. Her key is on her normal non-key side. In other words, it comes in through the bang. So there's a little bit of a shadow there, which creates more depth. There's something that's usually seen in film, not seen in TV that much. If you see when he turns, there's a little bit of what's called a rim light against him, a little bit of a kick or a rim light. She's got it too. Light that comes in from the side that all it does is produce glare on the face. Adds to 3-dimensionality. If you take a picture of single light of an egg, you get what's called a limb effect. It's brightest in the center and it falls away, just like the moon. It falls away. What we do in TV or film, is we use that to say this is 3-dimensional, but if it falls away too far in the corners, they start to look like an egg. It becomes uninteresting. So we've added lots of accents. Also, Katie has really good, it's funny to say, the models, she has really good posture. So we're never afraid to highlight her shoulders and all. She always has her shoulders back and looks good. Some talent, we actually avoid that. We're careful about the rim because it starts to look curved. It's not complimentary to that. He also is very photogenic and helps with that. So that's what you're looking at. This is shot at a lower contrast ratio. It's shot on our HD cameras. It's edited on an Avid somewhere, probably an SD though. Probably an SD. And this is actually a download from the web. So this is the product you see, just converted to DVD, which means it loses some stuff. The fill on this is if you're the camera. I need another camera to use as a camera. If you are the camera, there are 2 1-foot square LED panels below. If you're Katie's camera, you could be Katie's camera. And off to the right, because remember, she's keyed from this side, it's fill. There's a 2-foot Kinoflow vertically next to the camera, and then that eye light between the two poking through. Okay. Single 6-inch hard key, about where that one is, lower. We have to get some rods in here. This angle is all, anybody who walks in here over the age of 35, you're going to have to lower these lights because the angle's a little steep. And that's it. Tony Blair is essentially the same from the other side.
What are we watching here, Lonnie?
This is our interview area in the studio. This also is taken off the web, but this is shot in our interview area. And you guys have on your yellow handout, on the back page, there's a copy of the light plot for the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric. Don't be intimidated by how much stuff there is. We have a lot of areas. We have a lot of guest positions on the set. A lot of things double up. But if you look in the lower left-hand corner above CBS News, you'll see that there's an area with 2 chairs facing 1 chair. Just above, you'll see an arc that says 618, 619, 620, and then above that. Okay, so Tony is sitting in this chair. Katie is sitting here, and it's a little hard to see because there's a light over her head. All right, so we talked about key fill back. There's a single key light, and there's a small off fill here. Think of all of the rest of these soft lights here, 110, 107, 105, 104, as fill light. Okay? Key fill back. Now, do we do different things with them? Yes, but the function is the same. Okay? The fill brings us up to a level that's suitable for the cameras. The key defines shape. And the backlight separates us from our background. Okay? The off-center key just picks her up on this side so she doesn't fall off. It also gives a little bit of a rim on the other side.
So Lonnie, out of the 300 lights on here, how many are on Katie?
At any one time, at the desk, it's probably the most. And I said it's, not counting the low fills, at the desk it's only 11.
11 lights.
Okay. They're both. We have quite the collection. Here's our basic inventory. And the studio's Mole Richardson. It was built in 1985. The original dimmers are still there, but the electronics are different to control them. It's Mole Richardson 4K Super Softs, 4K Baby Softs, 2K Super Softs, 2K Baby Softs, 1K Super Softs, 1K Baby Softs, which are also called zips, even though we call the 2K zips, and everybody understands me. So when I say a Baby Soft, Super Soft this big, Baby Soft, same amount of light, this big. Okay? Baby Soft 2K, about 18 inches by about 9, 1K, about that size. Little box. This is not a soft light unless it's this close. Okay? 5K Fresnels, 10-inch 2K, 5K baby Fresnels. In other words, the 12-inch lens, not the 20-inch lens. 10-inch 2K Fresnels, 2,000-watt Fresnels. 6-inch 2Ks, 6-inch 1Ks. Some 650s, bunch of 300s that we own now. We have medium chimeras for the 5Ks. You guys worked with chimeras at all yet?
Not yet. That's in the field production.
Okay. Light bank. What it is, take a big box, put a white screen on the front, transparent like a bed sheet. Make it all aluminum foil on the inside, stick a light on the back end. The light, some of the light comes directly through the white, everything else bounces around and then comes through the white. But what happens is the light, instead of being this big around, is now this big around, and it sort of wraps around the talent. It sort of does this a little bit on the off-key side. Look at that. I can even fill that nose shadow from here. I can. Look at that. So, again, everything's trying to do that. Every light that points at talent, and I do want to say every, I'm sure there's an exception to the rule, they never see a raw lens. They never look at glass. There's always a piece of spun glass in front of it. Usually quarter tough, which is very thin, but just enough to break up the light. What happens is when the light comes through quarter tough, I'm sure I have some. Excuse the view. I'm supposed to have some. Those bastards.
That's when Lonnie's getting his
Acting.
fusion. Take a look at Dan Rather at the convention. Lonnie's not just in the studio all day. He's on location. He does web shows.
Yeah.
He does shows for the internet, for your iPhones, for standard def TVs, SD. The little TVs you have in your bathroom when you're shaving or washing up, the 3-inch TVs.
You guys aren't watching TV in the bathtub, are you? I'll be honest. Anybody? Anybody? Does anyone have a...
I have a Mega Watchman when I shave in the morning. I watch 3-inch. I watch CBS in the morning when I'm shaving.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll tell Harry Smith that. I'm sure he'll like that, but wow. Okay, I don't have one. Ha! I don't have a piece of tough spun in here. I'm a little embarrassed. Not as embarrassed as when I...
Can we borrow the piece off your lens? Let someone else get it. Ted,
Oh.
could you just grab the spun off the Lowell?
Oh, good. Okay. So what happens with that? Think about how the light travels through that. You have straight line, and then all of those little filaments, we say they bend the light. They really don't. What happens is there are reflections off it, which fills it in. So we go from this hard light to this hard light with all this soft stuff sort of mixed on top of it. It's almost like a little bit of mist or fog. And all the lighting that we do on talent, we try to soften up. This is awfully hard. You're looking at me. It's probably hard to look. I haven't seen this yet. You flip your monitor over so I can see me. Oh, God. Put it back. Okay. So this is hard lighting for talent. This is not comfortable. It's also hard for them to read prompter if they accidentally look into that, so we try to soften things up.
And by the way, we're going to turn the teleprompter on. It's 20 to 11, so in about 15 minutes, we're going to turn the prompter on. You're going to read while you're being lit. Okay?
And you're going to get to change chairs, because that's not fair to you. Also, we'll try to get, wow, it's all what do we have here? Desistes? Hold on a minute. Excuse me. Did you ever turn over a box spring, stuff that's on the bottom of a box spring? It's exactly like this. By the way, if you're ever on the field and and you're staying at a hotel and you forgot to bring this, the bottom of your box spring is this. Okay? They're never going to check. It's not like we haven't all done it. Okay? So this is what you want.
How many of you now will go to a hotel and cut out the bottom of your bed? Good.
Good. That's good. That's good. It's also, that way if there are mice in your hotel, they can get closer to you. So she's going to think about it again now. All right. So what this does is I'm still lit by that light, but it's a lot softer. It's a lot more diffuse. Okay? It's a lot brighter too. But you give up some of the light. So I'll find you. There you go. See? Nicer, worse, nicer. At this distance, it's more of a dimmer. When it's on the light, it tends to break everything up. Okay, I'll give that back to you. All right, so we're talking about that. The other thing we have to talk about now, when we talk about people on faces and all that, let's talk about HD TV. Okay? Okay? People my age, HD stands for highly dangerous. Highly dangerous. Okay? And let's talk about HD. Everybody fell in love with HD. My first exposure to HD were the engineers who were demonstrating it to us years ago. It was astonishing. And I had one of the engineers say, look at the detail. You could see every blade of grass. Football, great. Look at the detail. You could see every pore on his face. Bad. Just bad. And I had to explain to this guy that film, and Jeff knows this, and the older guys know this, film has been high definition since 1928. In 1928, they coated the first lens, and they back-coated film stock. By coating the lens, they killed the internal reflections, and the lens became much, much sharper. And when they back-coated the film stock, it used to be that when the light hit the film, it went all the way through the back of the film, hit the back of the film, bounced back up, and if you look at old movies, there's sort of a glow around everybody. That's back scatter off the film. When they back-coat the film, that went away. So all of a sudden, film as a medium becomes high definition. It's astounding. Look, you can see every blade of grass in black and white. You can see every pore Monday morning. They look at rushes Tuesday morning. The first thing the smartest guy does is he walks out there with a jar of Vaseline and he smears it on the lens. Because the talent can't stand that. You know, you wouldn't want, you know, if you have MySpace or whatever, or Facebook or Match.com, I'm thinking people, you know, Match.com or any dating service, you wouldn't want the picture in the dentist chair under that light. Why would you want that on TV? Why would you want that much resolution on TV? You want to look sharp without doing that. All our cameras, not this one. 1990. Beta SP, which actually looks better than Beta SX, because these are the tapes that came out of the camera. Very different style then. PBS wanted this huge backlight on everybody, and that slash on the back, which I hate. That's a 10-point lighting penalty, but they were paying for it. Don't they? They're trying to get you to watch American Playhouse. Oh, and she walked in, and she had this sterling silver brooch on that she loved. And I said to her, can we spray something on that, please? And she said, no, I love this. I said, well, Miss Lavin, it's very reflective, and compared to you, it's much more interesting on television. And she called over her assistant and said, hold this for me, darling.
What do you do, Lonnie, if someone has a bald head and it's very shiny?
Like Harry Smith.
Could you tell us what you do to Harry Smith sometimes when he gets real shiny?
Sure. And Harry Smith is reluctant to wear makeup. So what you do is, remember we talked about those shoulder backs? And we use those on Harry. The other thing is, for Harry, we'll sometimes even turn those off. We edge backlight him. His front lights won't get him in trouble. They're usually at about this level for the reflection. And remember, did you guys learn angle of incidence equals angle of reflection? Now I need my toys. Hold on. See if I have it here. Yes.
Are you doing your final thinking about it with meters or on the waveform or on a monitor, or how do you make those tough decisions, exactly how far to push them?
The answer is all of the above. And that's not me being cute. Here's a meter. The answer is all of the above. And it's because of this. Back off, shoot me in a longer lens. Thank you. Thank you. The waveform monitor is, according to all the engineers, the final arbiter. Not true. When I got to CBS, we were lighting something, and I had metered the entire set. I don't meter as much stuff as I used to. As you get more experienced, your eye is a pretty good gauge. I'll take a couple of meter readings to know where I am, and then everything else I can sort of see. I'll also use a contrast filter, which is an old film thing, and very few people do it in TV anymore. But it's a glass filter you look through, and it sort of reduces that contrast range, that dynamic range, so you get to see what the camera's going to see. Anyway, we'd done this, and the video operator set it up, and I said, give me a little more level on them. Because I had pushed the lights a little bit more, and I noticed that he kept irising down. And he says, no, look at the waveform monitor. It's perfect. And I said, no, it's not. They look a little dark. He says, no, look at the waveform monitor. It's perfect. And my mom was still alive. I said, my mother is not going to watch this on a waveform monitor. We have these $20,000 monitors, TV monitors, in our control room. You know, we had really good Ikegami monitors. I said, fix it. And he's like, well, you know, we're not supposed to go. I said, I don't care about the white in the background, that the flare off the car window 4 blocks back is going to be illegal. When a signal leaves a studio, it goes, the cameras have white clips, so you can't have whiter than white. They won't let you. They'll just compress it. They usually set the studio clips to 105%, so they can be slightly. But then it goes through clips further down the line before it goes to be recorded or goes to be sent on air. All forces it back down to legal. The trick here is you have to decide, and your question really becomes what's important in the frame. Okay? Talent is important in the frame. On a close-up, talent is paramount. If I'm taking a wide shot of, there's something there that says Oklahoma City. If I'm taking a wide shot and the talent's far back and they're not filling a lot of the frame, I'm going to care about a mise en place. I want them to understand where we are, what the story is, why we're here. Very important. Don't go on location unless you're going to relate that. Why we're here. Yes. Okay. These lights were killing me, but again, just take the Grandmaster down. Okay. Dan's going to walk into better light for his close-up. Okay. And I'll tell you how we lit this, because this is more fun than you can imagine. This is a great day. Okay. He's going to turn. Watch him walk into his light. See, we're pulling wide, and he becomes a little more important in the frame. Come closer. Here we go. And we start to fill in the offside of his face. Not 100%, but that's it. That's lit with a single source. One source. Go ahead. What's your question? He always hits his mark. For this one? No. There's no backlight. There's the light behind, but there's no backlight. There's no, okay. You want to know how we did this? It's one light source. It's what's called a Musco truck. Okay? It's 15 6,000 watt HMI lights on a crane 150 feet in the air that we had control over.
How much that cost to rent from
$6,000 a day.
a day? $6,000
Back then. It's now probably closer to 8. But anyway, we were not allowed to put lights up, and we couldn't build a big bank of lights because it's a year after. We have the survivor families. They find that very distasteful, so we're not going to do that. So what we do is we have this Musco truck behind our set. And then when it becomes daytime, the arm comes down. We just have a truck parked behind. It looks like a crane. But at night, he's all the way in. I mean, he's really in. He's deeper than this studio in, probably twice this size. So what do we have? We have this 15 times 6, 90,000 watts of HMI light okay, which is approximately 250,000 watts of incandescent light, pouring down this way. We have a couple of them. You have control of all the heads to pick up the background behind him. Because I'm not going to have a backlight, so the way I define him from the background is I light it at a different level. Okay? And then I have 3 munchkins with me who are catching the light coming from the Musco truck. You can put the lights back up, please. Well, actually, they were all bigger than me. But they were invisible. You couldn't see them. And what we'll do for the Wright brother here is we're going to fill in that side of his face. Okay? And as Dan walked, I didn't want them walking in the wide shot. They're waiting. The cameraman knows how far back he can go. They won't cross the line. Then Dan comes, and then they walk with him. Okay? Key and fill. All right? So that's just interesting because it was more fun than you could imagine. And if somebody ever says, gee, I'd like to do this with a Musco truck, and you're the producer, say yes. Yes. Yeah. Here. You guys fold that. Well, they're just going to sit in front of it now. See? See, I told you, it's addictive. It's there you go. All right. So, again, you can't meter that shot. You can't. And trust me, I didn't have a waveform monitor. I'm standing out there with the guy in the truck. The only thing is I have a radio to the operator of the Musco truck. And I'm calling lamps by number. And I'm trying not to go blind. I'm looking through a piece of welding glass, trying to do that. Okay.
It's fun watching the top models hold the flex. So.
They'll be fine. It's a big one. It's hard. Ah, you're almost there. You're almost there. You got this? All right, now take this one. Twist. It'll all go in. So far, nobody knows. We'll just cut it into small pieces. You'll take it home later. It's okay. Okay. This way you don't get too close to me either. Look at all the lighting we're getting help from. Okay. I trust the light meter the most, but I come from film. Do I trust the zebras in my camera? If I set them myself, I do. What do you keep your zebras set at? Okay, what are they set at? You're not sure, right? They're probably set around 90 for the whites, so the whites don't go crazy. I set mine at 70, facial highlight. So what I would do, for somebody fair-skinned like her, the little flares up here and all, I'd want at 70. You're a little darker, I'd probably set you at 70 and then crack it down half a stop if I was using you. You're somewhere in the middle. I'd have to decide with you. I don't know. But obviously, if I wanted to photograph these 3 women, they don't have the same skin tone. When I got to TV, to CBS in 1990, we used to do a local show where they kept wondering why African Americans were darker than the white folk. I said, because their parents were. That's just the way people look. Contrast ratio problem, though. We had a guy named William Rukeyser who was so white. I mean, he was like this white. He was like this white. He was like sketching class day 1. And they put him next to, and I can't remember the name of the other guy, but he was so dark. So dark. And they sat this close to each other. And you had to add a little extra light to this person and pull some away from this person for the cameras to see it. But you also had to make sure that if they ever changed seats, you could do it the other way. Yeah. And that was just, again, we're back to dynamic range. And thinking like the camera thinks, which doesn't think, it just does. Okay. I lost my notes. Okay, by the way, this is a light meter. This is a digital light meter, but it's an old one. You can tell because it rattles when I take it out.
You bought it at Barbizon, right? No.
Yeah, that's right. I bought it at Barbizon. I have no idea where I bought it.
By the way, Flash, you half price for light meters at Barbizon.
You tell Ira that Jeff said that Professor Wysocki said that.
50% off certain meters.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't believe you, but that's okay. Okay. All right. Somebody tell me what you think the light level here is. Not now. Take a guess. What's foot candles? Your living room at home is probably about 30. Your kitchen's probably about 45. Maybe 25, 35, but that's about it. Close. No, further. Yeah, 150. And the reason I said close, it's a stop away. Remember what a stop is? Double. Okay? It seems like an awful lot. But that's also where you're going to be someplace with a director or a video operator who's going to say, and you're lighting at 640-foot candles, you're in an interior that's partially exterior lit and all this, and say, can I get an extra stop here? Well, an extra stop would mean at that point you have to come up with another 650-foot candles of light on everything. The answer is usually, no, I'll do something to dim the windows. And you do. We gel windows all the time. Washington, D.C. I think this is going to be all night. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this case here, but we'll see. SD, this is before last July.
Good evening, everyone. In a short while, President Bush will leave the White House and head there to the Capitol to deliver his
Okay.
seventh and final.
This is on the roof of the Jones Day law firm. There are a lot of law offices that face the Capitol. As a friend of mine says, they like to keep their eye on what they own. Katie is sitting in a... Anybody go to school with a portable classroom? Remember the outside? Oh, me too. The trailer, those things. They took 2 of those, slammed them together like a portable classroom, and then cut the front out and replaced it mostly with glass. That's what's up there now. He's in the studio in New York. It's a full sheet of glass there. The only light on the Capitol is the light they normally put on, and then on big nights like State of the Union and other things, they will add some additional light. That night, they didn't add a lot for some reason. I don't know if it was Bush's last State of the Union and nobody wanted to take it seriously. I don't know what the story was, but that's what they did there.
I want to know, because you know how you do the light reflections on the face. How do you work with the glasses? How would I see that?
He doesn't have one. He doesn't have it. There is no low fill. Now what's interesting is Katie wears her glasses with the low fills only on the web show. Remember I said that her low fill is off center? Okay, back to angle of incidence, angle of reflection. Light, when it hits a surface, specular surface, a mirror, glasses, okay? If it enters this way, it comes back out this way. If it enters this way, it goes this way. Angle of incidence, 45, equals angle of reflection, 45. So it's like playing pool. It's like billiards. You bounce the ball off the cushion, it goes off in the other direction exactly at the same angle. There's no English in light. Okay, you can't spin it. There's no top spin. It's just in, out. So what we do is if we put the light right under the camera, it's going to, most people's glasses slant down a little bit. It's going to hit my glasses and bounce right back into the camera. If I take it and I put it to the side, there is a reflection, but a camera over there would see it. A camera here doesn't, and that's how we handle it. Jeff Greenfield doesn't get low fills. Yeah, that's all glass behind her. Now what's interesting there, it's really dark. It's really, really dark. There's a producer that sits off camera over there. We had to add a work light so this person could see what they were doing. It's that dark.
You're saying that's a natural darkness, or
No, it's dark because it's dark outside. I can't make the Capitol lighter. I light the Carillon behind them and some of the shrubbery below just so it doesn't completely go black.
Can't bring any Musco trucks, huh?
We have. We have, and on some days they do light the Capitol with 2 Musco trucks.
You have to go to the mayor's office, film and TV to do that?
Not in Washington. Washington has like 14 police forces, so you have to get approved by the Capitol Police, you have to get approved by the Washington, D.C. Police, you have to get approved by the architect of the Capitol. We have people who know that. That's what they do for a living. They get us approval in Washington. But normally, for the Obama inauguration, there were Musco trucks on either side. But even at night, that helps with the Capitol. It brings us up about a stop and a half. On a normal night, and we were just there 2 weeks ago, it's very dark. It's very, very dark. And what we do is...
A lot of wrinkles.
Yeah, Bob is supposed to have wrinkles. Well, that's the other thing. You know, and this is a terribly sexist thing to say, but it's true. Leslie and Bob are about the same age. Leslie Stahl. Leslie on camera can't get away with what would normally be wrinkles, and Leslie doesn't have a lot. Thank God for the people who light her. I don't light her on a regular basis. She's a very handsome woman. She really is. But if she aged the way Bob aged, her career would be in jeopardy. It's not fair. It just is. The standards for women, I mean, you can go on TV and be a craggy old bastard. You really can. Be a curmudgeon. Hence Jeff Greenfield, who is a curmudgeon. Can you think of a woman doing Now a Few Minutes with Andrea Rooney? Could you? Looking like that? No, it's not right. It's not right. I mean, you know, we know how old Katie is. She doesn't hide her age. She looks really good for somebody that age, but she looks close to that age. That's okay.
How old do you think Katie Couric is, though? 60? Don't tell her that. Gee, 48? Anyone else?
That's close enough.
Close, you're close.
She's around 50. She's around 50. 720 or 1080? 1080i, okay. Well, it's shooting effectively at a 30th of a second. It's actually a 60th, but that's a whole other story. So what you're going to do is you set the time on the meter. And film, we used to do shutter angle. It's the same way of arriving at it. So this says 30th of a second. That's right, 30 frames a second. And then we set the ISO, which was the ASA, which was the ANSI, which was the DIN, which was everything else, which is, you find out what the sensitivity of the video camera is. Most studio video cameras now have a sensitivity of around 320 to 400, but when you put a prompter glass on it, they lose half a stop. The way the prompter glass works is it's a half mirror. So that also means that half of the light coming through the lens is lost, bounces back away someplace. So if you were at 5.6, you're now at a little over f4. You lose a half a stop through most prompters. Some of the older prompters, you lost an entire stop, which made no sense, but you did. You lost an entire stop. So somewhere in there. I know that our studio cameras are set up around 200 with their prompters on. So this is an incident meter. That means it measures light falling on it. Okay? What this dome does is it averages the light. So I put it where my talent is, and I point it where the camera is, and if I trust it, it tells me 4 7/10, almost 5.6. Pretty good call. I just called 5.6 in the air. Did you notice that? Because I didn't think about it.
Take one more reading just for the camera.
Because I didn't think about it.
Okay.
Smile. Look at the camera. Don't look at me.
Look here, Lonnie.
There you go.
Good. We
Good.
want one good light.
All right. Now, that's all sorts of interesting and all. But that doesn't help me when I'm laying out the lights. That tells me how much light is falling on you. It doesn't tell me whether it's good light, bad light, top, side, bottom, back, anything. As a matter of fact, in most TV studios or film shoots, you'll see them always shielded from the backlight, because the backlight is not part of the calculated exposure. They used to change these. The one you have inside still has a flat disk. Now, this is for contrast ratios and all. So now what I say is I say, okay, this light here, 5.61. This light here, 4.9. I know that I'm getting twice as much light out of this one as I am here. So again, look at her. She's brighter on this side than on this side. Am I right? Yeah, look right at me. Give me the face. Chin on. There you go. Good. You, it's going to be slightly different. You're further away, and it's more on angle. So the contrast ratio here is different, and the contrast ratio in this one's different. Because we're on a curve here, the relationship to these two lights is different. This scoop up here, which builds up a certain amount of illumination in the studio, is not your friend as talent. It's a little high, okay? It's a little hard. It's very down. You know, if you want to show texture, and you'll notice there's some scenery in all of these. Usually if you look at lights that are on scenery, they're kind of close to the scenery and they're shooting down or they're shooting sideways. Same thing, shows texture. It shows texture. Talent, we tend to be flatter. We tend to try to think of the light as almost squashing it. Okay, next. All right, this is a long time ago. This is a new studio. We did a talk show. This is the equivalent of Oprah Winfrey on about a day's notice.
You set up the same morning?
I think we set this up the day before. And this is old cameras. When I got to CBS, our average illumination level was almost 400-foot candles. Now in the studio, it's about 72 with the newer cameras. So, yeah, we have more air conditioning than you would know what to do with. All right, where was I? Meters. OK, so we did that. The meter tells me to stop. I want to expose that. It tells me the contrast ratio between the two. On a waveform monitor, when you looked at that, you would get the highlighter for face up to somewhere between 60 and 70 units standard. And then you would look and see this part of her face. The highlight part would probably stay around 60. You would decide where you want to drop this. I've seen it go as low as 40 units. That starts to get ugly. You probably want to keep it close. Dramatic is OK if it's really, really dramatic. Don't get dramatic with your talent unless they've signed on for it. You know, if you're doing a Freddy Krueger movie, be dramatic as you want. That talent knows what they're doing. But you wouldn't do it on news or studio situations. Even if there was a wide shot leading into a close-up, you might do it on the wide shot. On the close-up, you'd come in. Remember, it's not all live. Live is different. I live in a live world. That's why we have so much control. But you would come back, and you would just fix that shot for the close-up. When you see a movie that's shot, the wide shots and establishing shots aren't even necessarily done at the same time or day as the close-ups. Different setups take different time. Okay, next. I keep losing this.
It's 5 after 11. Momentarily, we're going to turn on the teleprompter and we're going to have our models
Good.
be lit. We're going to create a new situation and we're going to have the entire class stand up and help light the set.
Great. Does anyone know how to operate this lighting board well yet in here?
You took the last lesson, so it's going to be Michael on the board.
Go.
Also, questions and answers. We're going to say 10 minutes before at 20 to 12. But before we leave here, could we do briefly just a little bio on how you got into the business from film to tape? I mean, I know it's asking a lot.
I can tell you how I got into the business completely, and I've told this story 1,000 times. Okay? You want to go back to 5 years old in the first grade where they said somebody has to turn the lights on and off, and I thought it looked like fun?
How did you get there? Where you are?
Where I am. I've been working in theater and independent film since I was a teenager. Off Broadway. You do the dance recitals at your local high school. You do all that and designing. I went to Hofstra University, which you have to audition to get into their program. I auditioned as a lighting designer, as a designer/lighting designer. I got in. I look at some of that stuff now, and it's amazing, you know, because I didn't know how to draft yet, and we still drafted with pen and pencil and all that. 3.5 years later, I graduated with a BFA. A BFA is almost a terminal degree. Excuse me. Is this on? And I went to work. I worked up at the. I worked at Opera on the Sound as their tech director for about 4 weeks, except that it was a very far commute for me, and they were all crazy. Now, that's not unusual for opera singers, but it was an opera with no budget and no real plan. So I went looking for something else, and I ended up working up at the 92nd Street Y through a contact I knew from college. And we did lighting and audio and all that. And then I ended up working at the Brooklyn Academy of Music for a few years. And during all that time, I was signing on to do off-Broadway stuff and regional theater and even dinner theater and some film production. And I was starting to do film. And my first film shoot, I thought the world was like this. They were Panaflex GTs. I thought my entire film career was going to be this high-budget because it was a Mike Nichols movie. They never went anywhere, but it was Mike Nichols and Panaflex GTs and tons of crew, and I was helping out as a dolly grip, and I even got to clap once and all this. It was great. And we did that, and then I kept doing industrial films and stuff like that, and did a bunch of lighting for, in this country, for some spots you'll never see because they were done for Aramco, the Arab American Oil Company. But at that time, that was a big deal. While I was doing the other jobs. Then I went over to NBC, and while I was at NBC, I got loaned to CBS for the 1988 political convention in Atlanta and for the US Open. And I met some people I knew at CBS, and I had been doing lighting, and I was starting to do video lighting and the stuff like the PBS stuff you saw, and there wasn't a lot of distribution other than TV at that time. There was no web. You know, if you didn't shoot industrials, and I shot a lot of industrials, and you didn't shoot network TV or local TV, and I did some of that. In New York, local TV is hard because the unions, while they're good for the guys who work there, they're not good for the people trying to get in all the time. The only other thing you could shoot was 1978, 1981. If you're not shooting network or local TV and you're not shooting industrials and you know what to do in video, what kind of jobs do you get offered? You know you won't say it, though.
Student films.
No. Plenty of those. What? Well, very independent films, yeah.
Low
What?
budget.
What? No. I did all of that. That's all part of my independent film stuff. Yes. Yes. By the way, the reason that VHF became the VHS became the standard, the same reason Blu-ray became the standard, is nobody decided that except the porn industry. Because their distribution is larger than the studios. One job, by accident, guy who had always gotten me work sent me on a job as an audio guy. And after a few hours, I just said, okay, that's good for me for the day. And I went home. My wife said, what's the matter? Because I was newly married. It's nothing. I'm just going to take a shower. 3 hours later, I come out of the shower. Right? I have my clothes in a bag. So I'm never doing that again. And then I started doing that. Okay, so at around the same time, I start meeting these guys from CBS. And I go out as the gaffer on that. I go out on the gaffer on the 1988. You guys know what a gaffer is? The chief lighting technician?
Who went to the
Okay.
show in Secaucus? They went to the Global 600.
Okay, I'm the gaffer on the 1988 presidential, eventually the 1988 presidential debates, when Dan Quayle was told, Senator, I knew Jack Kennedy, and you know Jack Kennedy? I was on the other side of the flat from him, with the entire crew going, yes. Okay, so a lot of those kind of events, a lot of it outside. When CBS hired me, they hired me for my field experience. They didn't. The big question was, can you do studio? I said, yeah, a little I can. I worked at NBC, did a bunch of stuff. The big lighting triumph was the 1988 presidential debate, the presidential election, because we lost power in the studio. I know, it's not supposed to happen, right? It's not, how could that happen? They managed to make it happen. And what's interesting is the old TK-47s that they had, 47s, 48s, took 6 minutes to restart if they lost power, because they were computerized cameras. And all their paint boxes and their, and all that lost power. So here's what we have. We have one robotic camera that's operated by the video operator, who's now by the way, the chief of operations for the Speed Channel, and was an usher at my wedding, so I'm set. And I'm in the studio. My guys are operating the election map. Tom Brokaw is sitting in the dark because the lighting board won't even come back up. We're on a different control. And he's talking about, well, let's talk about some races. And Bruce is moving the camera all around the map, and the map is flashing and changing colors and doing all the things. And like 4.5 minutes later, finally we hear, we have a paint box! And they go into a graphic, and we're done, and the lights come up and all that. But that was like one of the more exciting live events on TV. We still called the race like 4.5 hours late and really got our butts kicked. But shortly thereafter, I changed networks. The lighting director for 60 Minutes and CBS Special Events became a friend of mine. I had done a lot of work with him. He was the one who did the US Open and the Atlanta convention. And when he retired, he got me a 1-month audition at CBS to see if they would keep me. And in that 1 month, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm not really shy or retiring. I took a chance and I did everything I knew how to do. And I wasn't exactly the new guy on a lot of things. I knew how to do stuff because of all the other work I had taken for nothing, or work that paid so little that it actually cost me money. That when it was said, can you go do this? The answer was, yeah, I'll go do it. Can you do this? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I can do that. I can do that. Show me the plot. I can do that. I'll go do that. I'll go light this little stand-up that's going to play on some cable channel that we'll never see. We're supplying it to them. We have Tokyo Broadcasting System in our building. Great. They want to do stuff. I'll go do that. I'll go do that. I'll go do that. And I stayed after the month, which I took as a good sign. And 3 years, a little less than 3 years later, they signed me to a rather lucrative contract, and I've been there since. So that's how you get that job. You do a lot of things. Nothing is below you. Nothing. No job is below you. And if you take a job, you finish it. Even the one porn film. You finish that day's work, and you give it your best effort.
Even if you have to work for free.
Yeah, try not to work for free. But if you do work for free, make your work worth something. Find somebody on the crew who knows something. Ask them for stuff. And if they treat you like, oh, you're not worth anything because you're working for free, find someone else on that crew who came up that way. A lot of guys took a lot of time with me. Held my hand, showed me stuff. Said, here, come on, kid, we have half an hour. I'll show you what this does. I had a question with the director of photography about placement of filters and stacking filters and all that. Very esoteric stuff. You can read about it in books, but it doesn't make any sense. And there was no way I owned enough filters or owned the right kind of camera to make that test. And, you know, on a film set, lunch is sacrosanct. He gave up his lunch. We sat there by the side of the camera eating sandwiches. He had me in the operator's seat, and he was changing filters and saying, "Do you see that? You see that? See what I'm doing here? See that?" Priceless. Priceless. I would have paid any amount of money for that. So that's what you do. Be an eager beaver. You know, somebody said they thought my name was What's Next, because as I finish anything, the question was always, "What's next? What do you need next? What's next? What do you need next?" And I'm still impatient at work.
They call you what's next?
No, they call me lots of things at CBS. They don't call me What's Next anymore. But they do. I did a lot of rock and roll concerts. You know, the moving lights you see on every rock and roll concert? We did the first tour of those in 1979. None of us had ever seen them before. We were all, you know, we're all 20-somethings. We're very jaded. We think we know everything about lighting. We've been doing rock and roll. We hang upside down out of trusses. These things weigh a ton. They're ugly. We put them up in the air. We have no idea what they do, but we run the cables the way they told us to. It gets dark at night in the West Side Tennis Club. They execute the first cue, and the entire crew of 20-somethings is like this. Do it again. And the operator was nice enough to show us, and he said, and he was good enough to say at that time, he said, "Guys," he said, "this is the future of this type of lighting." He says, "All those racks of par cans, gone in 5 years." He was off. It took 6 years. Gone. Gone. So, you know, you have to pay attention. What you learn in any program, whether it's here, BFA program, MFA program, New York Film School, you'll learn enough to ask intelligent questions. Ask those questions.
And with that, we're going to turn on the teleprompter. You're going to read, and we're just going to do a little news set piece.
Okay. What we did, we went for a split key here, especially for a round table. So you have keys on either side. I would really love to get rid of this high fill here, because I don't think it does them any good. If I were to use another key, I would probably pick up the Fresnel in the center there between 8 and 9, use that as a center key, use these two, and then play with the levels till it all looks balanced across their faces. Because it's a round desk, you are going to need 3 backlights, one for center and one for the people on either side. Okay? Keep them centered. The worst thing that happens if you hit them with a backlight from this direction, they turn into it, all of a sudden it becomes this really crispy thing going across their face. Ugly. Ugly. Dramatic. Remember we said? Save drama for the dramas. It can be really bad. You probably want to get some tough spun into all of these. That one already has a piece of, looks like Hamburg Frost or 211. Yeah, okay. Whatever that is. The reason I like stuff further back in the studio, let's talk about the vertical angle. If you had rods, you could lower these. If you see our studio, and I'll send you a couple of snapshots for them, you see almost all our instruments hang, our grid's at 17 feet, and everything hangs down on a rod. And they're all really adjustable. We have walk-around grids, so the people work from above. Yeah, that took a little getting used to. I turned this back on. Yes, I did. All right, so backlights, key lights, and if you can't go further down, you go further back. The problem with further back in a situation like this is we start to cast shadows from the cameras. If I go above the camera and back, it's physically the same, but I don't have to worry about every other light I lower hitting it. You're going to have to work that out. Okay? All your lights are high enough that you shouldn't have a problem. So what you probably want to do is 3 keys, build up some base light. You can use these scoops further back. I don't know who moves these for you, but I would not use the cyc strips on anything except cycs. You have 4 Fresnels in place there. You can give them single. The person on center, unless they talk to the other talent left and right of them, you can do that as a split back. Okay, for 2. For live TV, little secrets, everything we do is backed up. There are, the reason we like those super softs is they have multiple lamps in them. There are 4 lamps in each one of those. Even if one blows, it's hardly perceptible. A lot of our key lights, there are 2 hanging, not as many because, but on a lot of live studios, you'll see a lot of really critical stuff. We either have 2 hanging or we have a way of getting around it. In other words, if you're filled from this side, and remember I said there's a key and a 4K Baby Soft here. If this key goes, I'll just bring this 4K Baby Soft up to make up the difference, because otherwise the fill's a little too strong. Other crazy thing you'll see in some of the stuff we do, if you really look at it, the fill is hotter than the key.
The fill is hotter
The fill is hotter than the key. It violates every rule. Don't do it yet. Always keep it in the back of your mind.
You have to learn the rules before you break them. Lonnie knew the rules before he broke
Okay?
them.
But, I mean, so if you see stuff like that, according to that rule, it's wrong. In that situation, it may be right. And you may get into a situation 10 years from now when you go, just do it. If it looks right to you, at that point, you can learn to trust your eye. It's photography. It's photography. Okay?
Lonnie, were you a still photographer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I am a. All right. Yeah, which is part of it. The other thing is when you're walking in the street and walking in a park, walking someplace, and there's interesting light. You pass a park and there's trees and light. Look at it. What's going on? Well, oh, I see. Okay. The light comes through the tree. The top of the leaves are bright. The bottom of the leaves, they're in shadow. But oh, look, the shadow is blue. It really is. It's the complementary color. So if I do that in the studio, what do? Do I use a little blue fill in from the other side to make the shadow color? Because it's not outdoors. It's, the reason it's blue is that the sky is blue compared to the sun. So when the sun's cut off, you're getting the reflected light from the open sky. You have to do that in the real world. The trick is you don't have to do it at this point. You have to see it. You have to start seeing it. Start saying why. Start looking at things like that. So, oh, I see that. If you take a blue light and a green light, it's an old thing we used to do and put a little tree in front of it. Right? The green side has the blue, there's green and red lights, let's say. You put the little tree there. On the green side, there's a red shadow. On the red side, there's a green shadow. Why? Because the shadow's only cast in one direction, but the light spills all over. So do all those things. Play around.
Raise your hand, by the way, if you're in CMF, if you're in Art 71. All right, so these are the photographers in the
Okay. Art said, and does anybody here paint? Yeah. Acrylics, oils? Everything. Okay. Lighting is exactly the opposite of watercolor. It's more like acrylics. Yeah. You build up. Okay? Except that the color mixing is different. This is additive, that's subtractive. But otherwise, you build up. Watercolors, you build down. You start with your highlights, you preserve highlights. Now what you do is you're going to start with that base, and then you're going to bring all those highlights in. Pretty much what we do.
I have a question about when you used to work for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like, how was it?
Nuts. Absolutely crazy. We didn't get the designs for Saturday Night Live till 11 a.m. on Thursday. We shipped everything out by Friday night. A lot of people didn't go home those nights. A lot of big power tools. Built fun stuff. Okay. Built the hot tub. Built the hot tub. Okay, Penn and Teller, the electric chair, bzzzt, built that. Not only built that, had to be the operator in the studio because if they made a mistake, it would kill them. Wow. Because you couldn't do the carnival trick in the studio. The carnival trick's really easy, except all the cameras stopped working for like 50 feet around it. It's so noisy electrically. So that's what we did. Yes?
You're responsible for a lot of the background pictures that you put
On Face the Nation, I shot those photos, yes. Of the Capitol, the White House. There's a new White House one in the works, hopefully next week.
Do you have to do it, or is
The pictures? Yeah. I don't know. That's not part of my job. That's actually a separate contract. Okay, that's the still photographer part. But since I know how it's going to work in TV, I can frame accordingly, and I can control contrast and all. So it helps that. Next question. Can you get rich doing this? Not really, no. Okay. You can get comfortable. You can get comfortable. If you're willing to, okay, here's the story. I know a lot of guys who make an awful lot more money than I do. At least 2/3 of it goes for alimony. So that's how you make a lot of money. You're never home. You're never home. You're never home. Me, I'm home a lot. So that works out better for me. Okay, what do all of you, now my question. Ready? This is going to be important for you. Everybody here want to work in TV or the media somehow? You want to be a director, a film director. I don't think you have the killer instinct. You have to show me more fear. I once saw a film director put a cigarette out. He was looking for an ashtray, and a second AD walked up, didn't have the ashtray, just put his hand out. And without even looking down, he put a cigarette out in the kid's hand.
I could be mean.
No, no, no. Don't be that person. There's karma even for film directors. Okay? Okay, that was, okay. Okay, so who wants to be directors? Film directors, TV directors. Okay, what kind of TV? Whatever pays? Network TV or comedy. Very different. Variety comedy, very tough. One of the best directors I worked with that stuff is a woman named Lily. Oh, it's Bowser, but what's her maiden name? Because she's divorced and going through that now. But she was like the best musical director I ever worked with. And she and her AD, and she was very fussy. She had to have her AD They both read music. They directed off the score. So that was real. Do you read music if you want to do variety and comedy? You should learn at least how to look at a score for timing marks and all. It'll help you a lot. Who wants to produce? Okay, tell me a lie. It's part of the qualification. Just look at me in the eye and lie to me. Like, ma'am, we're just going to be on the lawn for 5 minutes. Okay? That's what you got to say. No, no, we wouldn't break anything in your house. Never, 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 ever, never. No, no, no. We wouldn't do that. Okay, who wants to be camera people? Okay, I was taught by the lead cameraman on the David Letterman show that if your name ends in man, you're screwed. You want to be a camera operator. Okay, that's the film title. That's with the focus puller and the guys who push around on the dolly. This is what cameramen do. They pull around, they focus, they jump, they kick their own cables to the side. It's a really good skill. Be really good with it. Learn to tell stories pictorially. Learn to tell stories pictorially. Learn that when somebody talks, you know, framing, leading, work on all of that. Makes a big difference. Anybody want to be a lighting designer? Well, my work's done. Okay, yeah.
Funny story, I actually started doing this because I worked on that lighting board back over there like about 4 years ago. I did a play and they just told me everything's preset, you just touch buttons.
Well, yeah, yeah, but I can get a monkey to do that. I want you to learn to program and all that. The manual that comes with that book, by the way, you could get up anytime. I'm not going to change anything. I'm sorry, you're still trapped there. Very good. By the way, you did everything I asked the way I asked. I could use that any time.
Round of applause for Michael on the board.
There are bad board operators, lots of them. There are lots of good board operators. There are some great board operators. And if you wanted to learn something like that, you not only have to learn these boards anymore, you have to learn the Grand MA, the whole hog, and these are for all the motion lights. And essentially what they are robotic control panels for all those lights. The guys who can do that really well get top dollar. Get top dollar. And you're seeing them on Broadway. There are guys who go around to theme parks and program their motion control lights, and they all run on a time strip. They run off time code, but they're the ones who come back and troubleshoot and build the shows and all that. If you watch So You Think You Could Dance or American Idol and all that, there's a lot of lighting design in there. Those are really good lighting designers. He'd be useless without great board operators. Okay, and it's sort of like playing a Hammond organ for these guys. They're really good at it. The good ones are worth amazing amounts of money and even more respect. So don't be afraid to practice. Anytime you can get in here, just practice. You know, learn what groups are, learn what subs are, learn what inhibitive subs are, learn how you could do that. Because eventually you move on to other stuff, and all that grounding is, you know, it's all a look. It's how do I, you know, is channel 3 dimmer 3? No, not always. Why not? And learn that. It's all in those books. You'll learn that as you go along. But it's like, you know, first you have to learn how to get a channel with a dimmer attached to it to a level. That's fine. And then after that, we'll get everything else to work. But again, it's just iteration. It's like anything else. You learn to do 3, then you learn to do 6, then you learn to do 5,000. And that's all. It's like film. You know, if you really want to direct film, because film is non-continuous, you have to keep all that balanced in your head. You have to really be organized. Or you have to have the best first AD in the business.
Lonnie, before they go to the next class, we have a presentation. Come on out.
A presentation?
The president of Top Models Club is going to present this to you.
Oh, how sweet.
So everyone gather around for a photo.
Oh, please.
Okay. Everyone face, we're going to face this way. Let's get in front of, move back the camera.
We have almost the matching shirts.
Everyone move back the camera.
Does my wife shop for you too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody, whole class, everyone, you can take the plastic off. Take the plastic off. We hope that you'll put
how
this in
sweet.
a nice place at work.
I will.
All right, everybody, come on, models, come.
I need a clapper loader.
Everybody,
This
come.
way.
Come into the photo.
So look okay
Michael,
in the
we'll get
picture.
one with you in it.
I need a clapper loader. There, you hold it. Do you know how to do this?
Everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to yell slate. You have to really hit it hard. And it stays. Make sure it doesn't bounce.
Room on this side, Brian.
Okay, so slate it, then the name of the production, and then when I say marker,
Okay, everybody smile at Michael.